On the conversation of future of DPI and lessons from successful examples, the moderator of this conversation is going to be Mr. Navin Surya, Chairman Emeritus, PCI, and founder and strategic partner, BeamsVC. Our speakers are going to be Shri Suvendu Pati, Chief General Manager, FinTech Department, Reserve Bank of India. Mr. Alexandre Stervinou, Director, Cash and Retail Payments Policy and Oversight Directorate of Banque de France. Mr. Solomon Damtew Birhanu, Director, National Bank of Ethiopia. Mr. Stanislav Korop, Acting Director, FinTech Department, Bank of Russia, and Ms. Anna Maria Prieto, Director at the Payment Systems Department, Central Bank of Colombia. I think such stature of dignitaries joining us deserves a great round of applause. So join me in applauding as we call all of them on the Global FinTech Fest. Ladies and gentlemen, let's invite Mr. Surya, Shri Suvendu Pati, Mr. Alexandre, Mr. Solomon, Mr. Stanislav, and Ms. Anna. Welcome. Thank you. Over to you.
I was just trying to see, can I see all of them from where I'm sitting? Okay, so post-lunch session. Good afternoon. No noise. Guys, you know what happens if you sleep when regulator sessions is happening, especially post-lunch, right? We don't want to show that this is how fintechs work, that we caught sleeping suddenly, and then the policy come and say, hey, we were not aware. Anyway, jokes apart. I don't think there can be a better expert panel than this when we're talking about DPI from a regulator's point of view. Here you have panel which is from 5 continents of 7 in the world. You cannot have as diverse a speaker panel who is going to bring complete flavor from the globe as to what's happening in DPI. So I'm not going to take too much of a time, and I'm going to straight jump into the subject. And I will come to Alex first on my first question, which I'll come to others as well. The first question is, Alex, in your country, what kind of DPIs are getting used? Since a lot of people are here. India, of course, France has been doing it quite a bit, so you want to talk about that. And also some of the success stories with some interesting impact data. And I will be coming next to Mr. Korop for his presentation. So I'll request the session handler to also keep his slides ready. When I tell him, then put it up. Please, Alex, over to you.
Thanks a lot, Navin, and good afternoon to everyone. And thanks for the opportunity to share that experience with everyone and to indeed share with fellow colleagues from central banks what we've seen with digital public infrastructures, and especially in France. So I think what it means for us, those DPIs, is first of all a split between what really governments do and public authorities do, and also a responsibility that is taken by the private sector. So we split it really in 2 different areas. And we've seen actually for a long time some public initiatives around digital infrastructures, especially in the payment space. The backbones of payments, what we call in Europe Target 2, which was preceded by Target 1, of course, is the backbone of the settlement infrastructure for all payment transactions. We actually provided in the years 2000 an infrastructure for securities settlement because of the fragmented market that we were witnessing and the fact that it was not efficient enough and too costly for market participants. So those are real backbones that we brought to the market as government and especially central banks authorities. Now we have some specifics that we developed, which I think are different from one country to the other in Europe. For example, in France, we actually introduced in 1992 probably what was the first digital payment infrastructure, which was for checks. something quite popular also at some point in India, and for checking the irregularity of checks, and especially the fact that they could be frauded. It's actually a system that is up and running still now, available to 45,000 merchants in France. Still very convenient, probably on the verge of becoming upgraded, but that's a real success story that we've been running for more than 3 decades, basically. We have something more modern also that we brought in France, more specific also, compared to all those payment backbones I was talking about, which is called Madre, and that's blockchain-based technology. Blockchain-based technology to check the validity of the creditors in the so-called credit transfers, but also in the direct debits. And we need to have something of a service that is in place to make sure that there are no fraudsters using wrong creditor references to actually perpetuate fraud in payments. And Madre has been a blockchain-based system running since 2017. And probably, I'm not sure, but probably the first blockchain-based public service available worldwide, which is something of interest. Anyway, not so much talked about, but something that all the banks are using in France. And I will finish with another success story there, which is around EID. And I'll come back to that a little bit later, if you allow me to. But we've had many different digital identity initiatives in France, and I think that's typically something that the public sector must take on. But this is where we actually started to share things between the public and the private sector. So there has been initiatives, one called France Identité, French Identity, that is coming from the state, and before that, something called France Connect, coming from private-public partnership. Unfortunately, maybe a little bit competing, but those are for sure the first EID services that open up to 1,400 online public services like filing taxes, social security, but also for companies, B2B businesses, and so on. So all those things have been running up, and there's a future around that because, obviously, it's a way forward that we are experiencing those days. And maybe one last word. I said private sector has a play to play also there, so I kind of talked about it when talking about EIDs. But there is something called 3D Secure that you all know for securing transactions, online transactions.
Of course.
3D Secure has been something coming from the private sector, from the international card schemes, adapted to the French market and even to the European market. But actually the regulators took actions to make that a reality. Because the implementation of 3D Secure and online secure transactions was a little bit of a challenge over time, especially for merchants, but also for consumers, clients having a difficulty to experience this online security system. So we promoted it. We kind of enforced it back in 2008, 2009, and this actually was originated from France and then became regulation at European level in 2016 and beyond. Thanks to that, we have divided by 10 the level of fraud on online transactions in the last 10 years.
Thank you. Mr. Korop, I think your slides will come to you, and I'll come to Solomon next for his points on the same question. Is the slides up for Mr. Korop?
Thank you. Thanks a lot. I've got only one slide, just a short outline. Okay, so our esteemed moderator gave us like 10 seconds each in order to fit the framework, right? But I'd like to start from two remarks, two takeaways. First one, the most of us came here from Bengaluru, where we had first 2 days of much discussion, and I learned a lot about India's experience in building DPI, and I should say it's like mind-blowing, absolutely amazing. And my sincere congrats to the RBI and all the parties involved in that, because that's a really great job. Thanks a lot for sharing it with us. The second takeaway, DPI is not like infrastructure. It's more like approach, more a commitment from the regulator's side in order to provide for the business and for the ultimate consumer very reliable, secure, and cheap as possible infrastructure in order to develop innovative services and to create every day, every second finance solutions. So you shouldn't be surprised that we have established levels of digital public infrastructure not on the same volume or the same scale as India did, but anyways, to go brief, we have a unified biometric system. It's not obligatory to use, and you cannot be denied with the provision of financial services if you don't have biometry. But still, around 18 million biometric data is submitted. Also, we have a unified system of identification and authentication, and that is the single window for provision any governmental or social services. And here we have approximately 100 million of unique accounts, and this instrument is widely used. Going to digital data exchange, again, digital profile, very much similar to the initiative you have in India is ULI, very much similar. We have it running for physical persons and as a pilot for legal entities, open API, consent management program, and really greatly developed digital payments, including CBDC, going in the pilot way. Each of these requires like half an hour to discuss in details. We don't have that time, but all of these do have success stories implemented. For instance, faster payment system used by each second person in Russia, and payments are made with that system by every third person. And we have like 3 trillions of ruble in total volume of transactions with the nationally developed and owned payment system. Anyway, we'll be glad to answer your questions, and I pass the clicker and next word to my colleague from Colombia. There you go.
We will go to Solomon first, and then we'll come to you.
Okay, I'll do.
Solomon.
But you keep the clicker.
Yeah, that gives time for Anna's slides to be ready.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Solomon.
Thank you. Thank you for the organizers having me here. Very important session and a very important event. So when I come to your question, so we see digital public infrastructure from 3 points of view in Ethiopia or in emerging markets for the flow of people, the flow of payments, and the flow of data. So if we easily facilitate the flow of these three essential issues, we mitigate the financial inclusion problem, we mitigate accessing of finance, reach out to the rural areas, and to provide credits for the needy people and the needy business segments. To this end, to facilitate the movement of people, so we recently launched, just 3 years ago, the National ID program, which planned to onboard almost all of the people within 5 and 6 years. So far, we managed to register or provide digital ID, one of the critical digital public infrastructure for 5 million. And in the coming 3 or 4 years, we will reach to 90 million.
Very interesting.
And in terms of facilitating of payments, so that is one of the components is interoperable payment infrastructure or introducing of instant or fast payments. From this point of view, in the last 2-3 years, we really registered very, very good numbers. So we interoperable all of the payment infrastructures. All of the banks have interoperable through the national switch. And now it is easy to move funds from one bank account to another bank account, whether you use card or mobile banking or whatever.
Already.
So by this, we managed to process 9.4 trillion Ethiopian birr.
Wow.
Within 1 year, this 2024, we usually end up the fiscal year in June 2024.
Thank you.
So before 5 years ago, we didn't even manage to process digitally 2 billion birr. It was 2 billion digital. So within 3-4 years, we jumped to 9.4 trillion Ethiopian birr. You can change it into dollar. $1 is 100 Ethiopian birr.
Wow.
So this is one of the advantages that we are getting. And the other important thing is access to finance, especially credit, through using of the digital platforms. So from zero number, in just this year, we managed to provide 10 billion Ethiopian birr to the beneficiaries or to the some business segments. So in general, so the DPI, from our point of view, how it is contributing to reduce poverty, creating job.
Yeah.
From this point of view, I think seems that we are on the right way. And of course, number of transaction and the number of value of transaction is huge. It's becoming growing, of course, but not yet all of the transaction is digital yet. However, the integration of these three things needs to be, improved. So the ID has to be interfaced with the payment infrastructure.
Yeah.
And I want to call one number here. So we are 20 million plus people.
Wow.
The financial inclusion is 50%. However, the number of digital accounts in Ethiopia is surpassed 180 million, meaning that all of the urban area population are now accessing financial services, meaning that they have 1 or 2 accounts.
Sure.
Right?
You.
So the future, the next step will, expand the benefit of this digital public infrastructure to the rural area, to the farmers,
Absolutely.
where we can, provide more impactful services, a positive impactful service. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Can we keep Anna's slides? Anna, over to you, please.
Yep.
The next presentation.
Well, thank you for the invitation, for having me. It's an amazing event. Congratulations and
Thank you.
magnific hosts of this big event. I'd like to share a little bit of the DPI approach back in Colombia, specifically on the fast payment system that we are currently building at the Central Bank of Colombia. If perhaps, are we seeing the slides? Yes. Yeah. So just to keep this one at the back end so that you can, I'll walk you through this very specific architecture. We at the country is a very heavily dependent on cash. Our economy is still 70% of daily transactions are done in cash. And despite the efforts and I would say successful in financial inclusion, we still have low digital payments uptake. And Colombia has 3 private switches, a lot of fragmentation going on in the country, a lot of frictions in the user experience journey and so on. So the central bank decided 2 years ago to step in. The fund came and we shuffled a little bit the market. The decision was not to build a new system, maybe following the experiences more like in the US with the FedNow. We built on top of those 3 private switches that you can see at the lower part of the drawing, bringing a solution that it's gonna interconnect those private switches. So this is a very specific form of DPI in the sense that the Central Bank of Colombia is gonna run this technology that is gonna be able to interconnect those private switches, allowing that you can have or send money or make payments from any account to any account independently of which is gonna be the switch through which the transaction is gonna be processed. What the central bank is doing at the end is making sure that you have the settlement on a 24/7 basis and that you are going to be able to have your alias or key, whatever is it that you're going to use on the QR code in a very interoperable way. What I think that I would like to highlight maybe is the sense that when you are thinking or designing a DPI policy, You obviously need to take into account technology, and that's for sure something that is already like check for most of the central banks. Around 60 or 70 central banks in the world are already deploying a fast payment system. But what is more challenging in making sure that you're going to have a sustainable and successful DPI is more on bringing on what are going to be the rules by which you are going to guarantee that you are going to have a very smooth user experience so that you can have the digital uptake, but also that you can really open the market so that you can bring new players. That's something that we are really looking into in a place like Colombia, where a lot of new players are coming in and bringing the innovation.
Thank you. So Suvendu ji is known to everyone, so needs no introduction, sir. We are all, I mean, India is kind of a representation of all the world continents. So there's a lot of interesting things that we've heard, but India has its own journey. I'm sure you can add a lot more interesting flavor to it, especially the ones that not known to public. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Navin ji, for having me here. And it's great to be back here in the 5th edition. Yeah, so given the time, I would just focus on a few things. One of the thoughts that we have when we talk about digital public infrastructure is that any of the information, if they can be converted to a data or a digital form, then that makes them all that more amenable for manipulation, conversion, use, and it amplifies the potential.
Yeah.
So take the India's case, the starting point, if you look at it, is the Aadhaar or the digital identity.
Yeah.
The once the identity got digitized, is open up possibilities.
Yeah.
And one of the real examples of that success is the opening of the Jan Dhan accounts or the low cost or low basic savings and bank accounts. So millions of accounts were opened overnight by the banks, and that resulted in real inclusion. Let me share some of the numbers. The 67% of those Jan Dhan accounts which are opened by using the digital identity of India, they belong to the semi-urban and rural areas. And 55 to 56% of those accounts belong to women. That tells a powerful story about inclusion and
even
the
I didn't
way
know that.
digital public infrastructure can play a role. Secondly, UPI or the Unified Payments Interface is very well known. It's like clocking 14.4 billion transactions a month, and it's super powerful, super convenient. And what this payments does is that it's convenient, the settlement happens instantly, the economy is that much more, businesses and economy is that much more efficient. So it brings efficiency to the entire economy and entire ecosystem of, payment settlement. So these are already proven things. What I would spend a couple of minutes is on the little lesser known digital public infrastructures that India has, started to bring in or is attempting to, create as we move along this journey. One is that of the framework that Reserve Bank of India brought out in the year 2016, the account aggregator framework. That is kind of an open banking system in the international context, and India brought in this consent-based data dissemination framework, which is called the account aggregators, and that democratized the power of data, unlocked the data for multiple other uses. So now, for example, your asset profile, your integrations with GSTN, integration with many other services across regulators, be it the capital market or insurance. That has revolutionized, many other possibilities, lending happening based on that, advisory services getting built on top of that. That is one piece of building block of another kind of a DPI that we have created. Two more things that India has recently brought about, and one is that of the people my colleagues have talked about, is central bank digital currency. So that again is a powerful tool when you bring about digitize your cash. So that also will bring about a lot of financial inclusion. That also will drive new innovations, bring more efficiency, especially to the cross-border payment space, where our exporters, importers, they face challenges in terms of the time of receipt and in terms of the cost. Last item that I would stop with is on the what Governor spoke about a couple of days back,
Yeah.
is the unified lending interface.
Yeah.
We have done a lot of innovation on the payments side, and here is our time to explore the hugely untapped lending market. Our businesses, our people need finance in a frictionless manner, and this is what is being attempted through creating this unified lending interface, where we provide them frictionless finance to 1 billion of Indians. And how that happens? Again, by unlocking data, integrating data service providers to a platform which makes this bilateral integrations, overcomes the complexity of bilateral integrations into a singular integration.
Yeah.
So these are the powerful things. And Navinji, if you just
interesting.
permit, the model that India has adopted is that of the public-private partnership.
Yeah.
The public institutions build the infrastructure based on which the private sector comes in and innovates. And that has played great dividends, and probably that provides a good learning experience for all of us.
Yeah.
I'll stop here.
Thank you. So we have about 21 minutes left, and more twisting and more exciting part comes now. But we have about like 2.5 minutes for all of you. So the second part of the question is, what's the future? And before that, what have been challenges? And how do you handle some very sensitive topics like, should we govern pricing, not govern? What are the pros and cons? How do you decide? I mean, what happens in terms of fraud, accountabilities, etc., cyber crimes increasing? So some challenges and some future. Challenge bigger for all our panelists is about 2 minutes and probably a few seconds. Alex, I'll start with you.
Yeah, thanks. And I kind of hinted a little bit to that when we introduced the panel and I had the opportunity to talk about the success stories. I think there are key topics to consider here. I mean, the first one is the issue of the share of responsibility between the public sector and the private sector. The second one that is being intersected with is actually the notion of trust. Of course, as a central bank, I mean, we are here to ensure that payments are safe, are trusted, and all other services are actually also in the realm of trust. But that's something that is going in the intersection with the public-private share of responsibilities. And I will use the 3 different categories that we're all having on top of our heads: ID, data, and then payments, and giving examples of things which are in the flux right now. And you will see that actually going from the top one to the last one, the share of public-private responsibility becomes slightly different. In the ID space, the digital ID space, I talked about some of the initiatives that we have started to come up with in the last few years in France. There is a new one at European level, bringing all together the countries in Europe to have a digital ID wallet. I think that having a digital ID wallet where you have an identity which is trusted, provided by government-level services, government-level authorities, is actually at the core of all types of digital services. Yeah. And this is something where the public sector needs to act first. It's a challenge in Europe that has been around for more than 20 years. There has been initiatives at domestic level in the various countries, but always isolated, sometimes not capturing a lot of traction. Yeah. But at European level, we need to have a framework in place. This is coming up as soon as 2026, actually, in Europe. Okay. And we are very much supportive of that. Oh. Second area is data. In the data exchange area, I will take just one example, which is around fraud. You talked about it. Yeah. We need to tackle fraud even more than what we do today. I mean, we are using systems such as 3D Secure, I talked about it, but we need to exchange information on, for example, IBANs, so bank identifiers, which are used by fraudsters and shopping around in different countries and different merchants with those identifiers to take money to buy goods and services. Yeah. We are providing now a platform that will be soon available, we hope, in France, but also in other parts of Europe, which is malware information sharing platforms. Wow. The challenge we have is to interconnect those domestic initiatives at European level, once again. But this is something that is becoming a reality. And this is something where we, public authority, play a role
Yeah.
But then actually the platform also itself has to be coming, the platforms have to be coming from the private
Very
sector.
interesting.
So you see
Yeah.
the share of
Thank you.
responsibility is slightly shifting.
Thank you.
And I will end in the last few seconds with the payment area. In the payment area, we have two things to consider. Instant payments. So we provided the backbone. It's called TIPS in Europe. I mean, that's equivalent to Target for large value systems, but this is for instant payment. So Target instant payment services. So this is the backbone for instant payments that can become a reality for any type of transfers you would want to have between customer to business, business to business, business to consumers, government to business. Now, this is backbone again. So you have a settlement engine. We are providing that. But the reality is that we need the end solutions. The end solutions, that's the acceptance for merchants, and this is the product itself, the interface that is in the hands of the consumer. So the payment service providers have to play a role there. It's slowly taking up, not enough. So we have regulation also imposing the fact that instant payments become a reality.
Thank you.
We see an initiative, a pan-European initiative called Rero. That's a little bit of a digital wallet, a little bit like UPI, to be honest, that is being provided by a few countries, not all of them in Europe, but that is, the next steps moving forward. And I will have to end, sorry, but of course, by CBDCs. I mean, and especially in the retail space. In order to provide an alternative, a credible alternative to the, let's say, competing arena that exists in Europe, and especially coming from not only domestic solutions, but also foreign solutions.
Sure.
We want to provide an alternative that is an equivalent to cash in the digital space, like a digital banknote, available to everyone, everywhere. So universal acceptance, being free for consumers, providing some added value for businesses if they want.
I think I'll have to go to Mr. Korop. I'm so sorry for this, but
that was my end word. So I mean, this is in any case a project that is a long-term project. We haven't decided on issuing it.
Of course.
But hopefully, we will take decisions later in this decade.
Thank you. I'm so sorry about this, but I'm just making sure that all of us can say something.
It's really interesting. I think we all might go after Alex. He covered it all. But if I might choose, I'm going to pick like two challenges and two opportunities. Among challenges, that's the pricing regulation. One life hack: if you're not intending to regulate prices on the newly created market, please ensure that the legal framework you're writing and you're launching has the possibility to execute that regulation afterwards. If you make up your mind, it's going to be late when the market is created. Another one is people mindset. We are regulators, and we might enforce our companies to do or not to do certain things, but we do not have any power over the ultimate consumer. That's why it's even more important to build trust to the technology in order to promote the usage of any technology. And to do it, you have to go deeper into details, you have to change the mindset. Two opportunities, CBDCs and cross-border payments. In both ways, we as a country are ready from the technological point of view and willing to collaborate. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Solomon.
Thank you. So I use fully my 2 minutes, okay?
Thank you.
So from the challenge point of view, I want to raise two challenges. The first thing is about the trust. In digital public infrastructure era, so trust is very important. We have to address the concerns of the individual privacy. In this regard, the consumer, the end user's data needs to be protected. It is the consumer's absolute right to determine who should access that consumer's data. So we have to create such enabling environment for the users to decide, to give their permission, so that everyone in the ecosystem feels that it is protected. So that is the one thing. The other thing is how the fraud, the monitoring, and the ML and the KYC requirements are fulfilled in the DPI environment. So that is also one of the challenge and the area where the regulators, and the market participants should have to be collaborate.
Yeah.
The other challenge is about the regulatory environment. So DPI by itself do not provide goods and services or the product and services. It is up to the fintechs. Those have to come up with the products, with the services to the last miles, to the users. So how the regulators should have created such enabling environments. See, I'm a central banker. We usually see from the risk point of view, right? So, however, we need to balance it, the benefit and the risk. Of course, in this infrastructure, there are three very important things are being flowed. The first is people, of course, money and the data. And we have to have such environment, such regulatory environment and enabling environment for those fintechs, those can access the data and the infrastructure responsibly.
Thank you.
So that are the areas, that the challenges that we should have to be work. One opportunity, of course, the future. So I was thinking that is, especially in the emerging countries, the cross-border payments are very, very essential.
Absolutely.
So we have done, some countries have done a very good job in terms of making their domestic payments interoperable, accessible, and efficient. However, when it comes to the cross-border payments, especially in Africa and sub-Saharan Africa, we have not yet achieved such success. Therefore, CBDC, as my colleagues have already said, is one solution.
Yeah.
So may we consider CBDC as a global DPI? Thank you.
Thank you. Anna?
The biggest challenge is to keep up with time here in this panel.
Yeah.
That's the biggest challenge. I
For
agree.
me, actually.
Yeah. I agree with all of what my colleagues have raised. Perhaps I will add two challenges. One has to do, as long as we have this high-speed innovation in the market, we do need to set up a structure on which we can build a very strong public-private collaboration, because we as central banks need to keep up, speaking a lot with the industry, hearing a lot of all of the stakeholders in general, and to build a strong governance around DPI. That's one of the challenges. And the second one has to do with building internal capacities, I would say. For most of the central banks, or at least back in my region in Latin America, this is perhaps the first time in which the central bank is actually acting more like a tech vendor and not like a regulator. And that has to do, that's a huge internal challenge. Sometimes it's very invisible of what's really happening inside in terms of assessing the risk, buying technology, the way that we take decisions, the way that it requires a lot in the human resources and so on. And sometimes it's not, it's difficult. It takes time to move these very big institutions from a place that has been like more common ground, more into a more dynamic way of making business and taking decisions. So I will say those two.
Thank you. So before I come to Suvendu, I want to see in the audience how many questions you have. Raise hands if you guys have questions. So I will know how much time to keep for questions. There's one. I'll come back to you, but I just want to say, okay, not many. So sir, okay, 2, 3. So we'll have to keep some room for questions. So Suvendu sir, I think we talked a little bit about future, and that's going to be again talked. But I would be grateful if you could talk about two things. One, of course, is the challenges. Second one, probably more about India collaboration. Many of these countries have contracts with us, collaboration agreements during G20. If you want to touch upon a little bit on that, that would be great. Those two topics, and then we go to audience questions. Please keep your questions ready. Sir.
Yeah, thank you. Already our co-panelists have already talked about the challenges, and let me add a couple of dimensions to that. As we consciously go down the digital transformation path, it's very important what my colleague said, panelist said, to maintain the trust in the system. And for that, we need to pay serious attention towards a couple of issues. One is the cyber security. There should not be any bad incidents which will compromise on the trust and faith in the system. Second dimension is on the more and more guardrails or regulations are going to come around the data privacy, data protection, and things like that. And when we are talking about digital public infrastructure and scaling, using those as building blocks for unlocking services, in that sense, how do we manage this data privacy and those issues? Those are going to be two challenges. But what I would like to, as countries which are on the path of developing and want to benefit on this path, we need to focus on a couple of things. One is on, instead of initial indigenous innovations, getting spurred and then getting, scaled, how can we sit together and think about developing a structured approach towards development of DPI? Let's say when we are thinking about, let's say 10 years hence or 5 years hence or beyond, can we have a single digital identity format across the world? Think about developing codes and standards which everyone agrees to, that needs to be formulated from now on, so that we don't have to deal with the legacy systems and complexities of individual integrations. Think about again, partnerships, collaborations across, and come up with standards. For example, the cross-border use case of central bank digital currency.
Absolutely.
There is a need for developing those interoperable platforms, developing the management framework and the governance frameworks, which would serve us, all of us well. And there the international organizations like, say, IMF, World Bank, BIS, FSB, as well as all the central banks across the globes need to sit together and collaborate.
Absolutely.
And agree for a future plan. And then only we can, sort of, instead of replicating individual successes, we work together towards a common future strategy.
Absolutely. Thank you. After listening to all of you philosophically, I can only remember one song, Imagine, of John Lennon. I think if you all put your might together, we could probably have that as a reality. So I'll come to questions. So house rules, very simple. State your name, state your question. Please direct your question to a specific panelist, ideally, so that we can also cover one. Yeah, please go, Mike here.
Hi, my name is Gopika. I'm from the Mint Business newspaper. Today morning, the US Federal Governor, Christopher Waller, raised some questions regarding the viability of interlinking of payment systems of different countries. Now, I thought this is the best platform to put this question across to all of you. What are your views on interlinking of payment systems? Do you think we are ready for that? The Reserve Bank governor had proposed that India could develop something like this for the world. What are your thoughts on this?
Sure. So my request to all the panelists will be to keep it very brief. We don't need to get into details, but yes or no kind of thing. Yeah. Sir, we can start with you. Interoperability.
We believe this is a very, for the reforms to come into the global monetary system and to make the cross-border payments more efficient. Typically, cross-border payments, suffer from three things: high cost, lack of inadequate transparency, as well as the turnaround time or the time of settlement. So now we have those technologies whereby we can bring efficiency to the cross-border payments in 2 or 3 dimensions. One, by interlinking the fast payment systems of one country with the fast payment systems of another country, where the businesses get the credit instantly, as soon as, the funds move. Second, by interlinking the fast payment systems with the central bank digital currency, or interlinking of CBDC of one country with the CBDC of another country.
Sure.
Other countries would be on various stages of evolution, but the whole purpose and idea is to bring efficiency to this space. And that's a desirable goal. As per the World Bank study, the costs are above 6% and is even more for sub-Saharan countries. So that is something which is unaffordable, and we need to see the efficiency of the wholesale market transform into the retail market.
So I think we are all ready for it. Anna, you want to go for it?
So yes, technology already solved part of the problem, but now I think that the biggest challenge around the interoperability imperative has to do with defining the rules that you need to take in place so that interlinkage can really work. And that's when I think that the central bankers has a lot to do in coordinating that type of rules between systems.
Solomon, I'll come to you. Yeah, go on.
Okay, thank you. I just want to, a few seconds.
Yeah.
So
I'll come to all of you.
Yeah, interlinking of payment system of different countries. In terms of technology, it will be easy because all of these technologies are built based on standards.
Yeah.
However, it is about the commitment and the governance issues between two countries has to be addressed.
True.
So the collaboration, how the governance should be made or how the governance is handled when the two systems are interconnected. So thank you.
Mr. Korop?
Yeah, shortly. Yes, only if the real business need exists. Only if the solution covers and satisfies its business needs and country needs. Not for the flag to raise. That's purposeless.
Perfect.
And if you ask me, do I believe in creation of a single payment system in, say, next 20 years? I would say no. And I would say that is good. No purpose in that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No,
you might have one question's probability after this, so yeah.
Fully agree with my fellow panelists, especially on issues such as governance and business needs and single platforms and so on. Just saying that all what we discussed here is actually on the agenda of the G20, where there is a roadmap for cross-border payments, where all of this is being considered, interlinking, but also new technologies, innovative platforms such as CBDCs, how to make those connections, how to tackle governance issues, giving guidelines to help people and also to work, so the private sector, and also to work on the private standards. So this G20 roadmap that is being supported by the Financial Stability Board is there with early targets for 2027, where hopefully there will be concrete outcomes in terms of lowering the costs, speeding the transactions, giving more access, more transparency to cross-border payments.
Thank you. I think we don't really have a time for questions, so I would just kind of quickly summarize and then say thanks to the panel. And one thing that you all saw, that the whole DPI ultimately is depending on the ID, payments, and the credit infrastructure. There has been emptying success. Obviously, the next areas are around the challenges of a fraud or, let's say, any of these pricing-related matters, the remittances, cost coming down. So I think that's what it is broadly looking like. And it looks like the cooperation, whether it's a G20 and any other, are continuously going to grow. So we will see, like I'm again repeating, probably a possibility of a one world, one currency, maybe, at some time. If not, definitely one CBDC, hopefully. So again, thanks a lot. Sorry if I've been kind of any point I had to stop any one of you, but I was just trying to do my role. Thank you very much. Thanks. Amazing panel. Thanks a lot.